Hello, today we'll be looking at relative formula and molecular mass, relative formula mass and molecular mass. So let's start with the definition. So relative formula or molecular mass, symbolized by Mr, of a compound is the weighted average mass of the compound compared to 1 in 12 the mass of an atom of carbon 12. As it's a relative scale, it has no units. Beware of this definition and make sure you have it in your head word for word in case you're asked on the exam to define it. So in one of my last videos we saw that the concept of relative atomic mass allows us to compare the relative masses of different atoms. The spotlight is on atoms, but for relative formula and molecular mass, they allow us to compare the relative mass of different compounds and not atoms. So that's where the difference is. We have to differentiate between relative formula mass and relative molecular mass. They might be the same, but there's something about them that's different. So for relative formula mass, it's the sum of all relative atomic masses of all the atoms in a formula unit of a substance. So you get relative formula mass when you add the individual relative atomic masses of all the elements. And for relative molecular mass, it's calculated the same way. So here's the difference. So for relative formula mass, it's mainly used for ionic compounds such as sodium chloride. Ionic compounds are formed from metals and nonmetals. But for relative molecular mass, it's mainly used for molecules such as CO2. So the name of the video is here is a little bit of encouragement. I know chemistry might be hard for some of you and easy for some of you, and there's going to be a lot of work, but we're in this together. So with me we'll be covering all the topics in chemistry, especially for IB diploma, HL. I did HL by the way, so we're in this together. I'll help you out with your chemistry problems. And also, you don't give up, because you are the main person here. You'll be the one writing the exam, so count on yourself. So the periodic table. Why did I bring the periodic table here? Right? So for example, how do we calculate relative formula mass or molecular mass? It's not given to us in the periodic table like the relative atomic mass. So for example, I used sodium chloride in my example. So if we want to calculate the relative formula mass of sodium chloride, how do we do it? So first we have to get the individuals or the relative atomic mass for each element. So for sodium, the relative atomic mass from the periodic table. Where is sodium? Sodium is right here. I told you, if you haven't watched my last video on where to find the relative atomic mass, please go back and watch it. So for sodium, it's 22.99 or 23, and it's the 11th element on the periodic table. So the relative atomic mass of sodium is 22.99, which is close to 23. And for chlorine, what's the relative atomic mass? Chlorine is the 17th element on the periodic table, and its relative atomic mass is 35.45. So to get the relative formula mass, you simply add. So sodium's relative atomic mass plus chlorine's relative atomic mass. That will give you 58.44. And let's do one for relative molecular mass. That's a CO2. So for carbon, the relative atomic mass is 12.01. And for oxygen, the relative atomic mass is Let's go back to oxygen is 16. So the relative molecular mass, I didn't say formula mass if you noticed, so it would be 12.01 plus 2 times 16. 2 times 16 because there are 2 oxygens. So if there were 3, I would have multiplied it by 3. So 12.01 plus 32, that's 44. So remember, it has no units. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in another video. Thank you.